Hey there internets, I'm Michael and this is Toucan Play That Game. And today we are finishing our look at Boss Monster 2, the next level. And of course that means this video will be my review of the game where you'll finally find out my thoughts and opinions on this game and of course whether or not Toucan Play That Game. But first, if you haven't, please do check out my previous videos in this series where you'll be able to see an unboxing of the game, also a tutorial on how to play the game, and an example of the game being played. So, with that out of the way, let's have a look at Boss Monster 2, the next level. Well, let's start with talking about what is Boss Monster 2. So, Boss Monster 2 is a card game, and it is a card game with a theme set around retro gaming, like dungeon crawls, where rather than being the heroes traversing the dungeon, you're actually the boss building up your dungeon in order to kill those heroes. So the way you will do this is you will draw cards into your hand that you will then be playing to add to your dungeon. Each room that you add to this dungeon will then damage the heroes. Each round, a certain number of heroes come out and they'll each have a certain number of health and are after different kinds of treasures. Now, different types of rooms will offer different types of treasures. Whoever has the most of that treasure, the hero will therefore go to their dungeon. You'll lose the game by being knocked out, and this happens if you attract heroes to your dungeon, but you fail to do enough damage to actually kill them. They instead damage you. Now, if at the end of a round you have 5 wounds, you're knocked out and you are therefore eliminated from the game. However, if you manage to kill those heroes, you collect their souls. And if at the end of the round you have 10 souls, then you win the game. So that's a brief summary of what Boss Monster 2 is. So let's now actually talk about my thoughts. And I want to start with the artwork on this game. So they've done a really great job on picking up that retro game feel with the artwork. And they did the same with Boss Monster 1, with the original one. But I would say they have, as the name suggests, taken it to the next level with this. I think the artwork is nicer in this. I think maybe they spent a bit more time on it. But the actual art, I think, is much nicer. So, I mean, all you got to do is look at the box of this game and immediately you think you're looking at like an old Nintendo game box. And that's the whole point, and it does it perfectly. So, then of course we have the pixelated images such as we have on the cover here. And I'm not a huge fan of that whole pixelated thing, but it is doing a great job of bringing back memories from my childhood. So having that retro pull with those images, and that carries out throughout the cards. I mean, you've got the hero cards here, you can see on those, you've got all the pixelated images, which are really quite nice, some of them. Some are a bit bland and a bit plain, but for the most part they're all different, they're all interesting. Even if you've got the same type of hero, it's not just the same image again. So that's kind of nice. And of course you have the epic heroes, which just have even more interesting, special kind of ones. One of my favourites is this sword mage here, who's riding a magic carpet. And again, this just carries on throughout all the cards in this game. I mean, we look at the bosses, and these are fantastic. I mean, all you got to do is look at like my previous videos or the unboxing. You can see some of these fantastic pixelated image that just remind you of your childhood. But probably the best thing, artwork-wise, in this game is the room cards. And this was the same, I would say, in Boss Monster 1. And why I say that is because when you lay out your dungeon and you're building it up, and it works, the bosses as well, they all have like a ground level and like a bit above. And it just, they line up and it looks in the same way as those kind of screen scrolling dungeon crawls, and I think that is a fantastic thing they've achieved with the artwork there, to have that effect across all these different cards. So what else is there to talk about artwork wise? Well, as I say, it's pretty much a card game. It's all about the cards. So we've talked about the front of the cards. The general layout of the cards, such as the heroes here, is really clear and easy to understand. And I think that's the same on all the cards. So I think they've done a really good job on the graphic design layout. Now, the backs of all the cards are kind of plain and boring. They're just kind of different background with the name of the deck and the name of the game on. Now, is this an issue? No, it's just functional. It's not displeasing, but there's nothing there drawing you in artwork-wise. So, with artwork out the way, let's now talk a bit about components. And the first thing I want to talk about here is the box insert, because sometimes you'll get a card game and you'll have the cards in the box and you'll be there going, trying to get them out of the box. You don't do that with this. You literally, the insert's really nicely shaped and works so well for just scoop straight out of each side. So they have done a great job. I like the insert on this. It is only vacuum plastic, but it does the job, and that's what matters. So what other components? Well, let's talk a bit about the rulebook. We have this big chunky rulebook, and it's fine. It's perfectly usable. It's a bit of a awkward size and shape, but I know why they've done this. It's because it's like old Nintendo games. Now, otherwise, it's perfectly nice, easy to read, lays the cards out all very well, all examples, very detailed. Potentially a bit too detailed for what you actually need. But then they've done a great thing. They have this Quickstart guide, which also works really well as a reference sheet if you haven't played in a while. And this actually probably has everything you need to know on these two sides from this rulebook to be able to play. Now, if something is unclear looking at this, you can then look it up in the more detailed rulebook. So that actually works really nice component-wise. Then, of course, the only other component in this game is all these cards. And you do get a lot of cards here. Now, are the cards good quality? Yeah, they're good quality. Are they superb, special? No, they're nice, decent quality cards. They're not going to wear out too quickly, but they're not going to blow you away either. So component-wise, kind of neutral, artwork-wise, kind of positive to neutral. So what's that leave us with? Of course, it leaves us with the gameplay. Now, I really do enjoy Boss Monster. It is one of those games, and it doesn't really matter if you're playing Boss Monster or Boss Monster 2, because they are so similar. So what I'm actually going to do before I carry on with what I was saying is talk about how similar they are. Now, if you are trying to decide, should I buy Boss Monster, should I buy Boss Monster 2, there really is very little in it. I would say Boss Monster 2 is actually like a 1.2, you know, or 1.5. It's just slightly enhanced version of Boss Monster. Now, if you already have Boss Monster, should you buy Boss Monster 2? Well, if you want just more different room cards, more spell cards, and these are all different compared to what you had in the original Boss Monster game, then yeah, definitely buy it. You know, you already know what the game is. If you just want more variety adding to that, this will do that. But it does also add a couple of little extra complexities, such as the heroes with the stars here that have a few extra special abilities. So I think in the original Boss Monster, there was only the one special ability character, and that was the Fool, who just went to whoever had the fewest souls. Whereas now there are quite a few of different ones where other people can play cards to enhance that monster. There are monsters that want multiple types of treasure added together, so that's really nice. So those kind of little enhancements, and I think maybe even some of the room abilities and spell abilities are potentially more thoroughly playtested and thought out than some of the original Boss Monster ones. So that's why I would say if you're deciding between getting Boss Monster or Boss Monster 2, go for Boss Monster 2. If you already have Boss Monster, only get Boss Monster 2 really if you want more variety in those cards. As I say, that does add a couple of little extra things, but it in no way really changes up the gameplay. But the gameplay is fun. It is a very luck-heavy game about what cards you actually end up with, what room cards you get, what spell cards you get, what even boss you get can make quite a big difference to how that game is going to play for you. You know, if you desperately need a certain treasure type but you literally have none in your hand, there's not necessarily a lot you can do to mitigate that. But at the same time, there is a lot of strategy in the way that you build your dungeon, what you choose to build when, what you're building over, what else, how you're chaining and combining powers from spells and those room abilities. There is definitely strategy there. And if you watch this channel, you probably know I have kind of a sweet spot, if you will, on games whereby there is a combination of strategy and luck. And Boss Monster does that. Because yes, there is the luck of the cards, and that is always potentially going to mean you lose and potentially just mean you get lucky and win. But at the same time, you are making decisions, and those decisions are going to make a difference to the way the gameplay. It doesn't matter if you are the luckiest person in the world. If you make consistently bad decisions, more often than not, definitely, you're going to lose this game. So there definitely is that element of strategy involved. So that's my thoughts on Boss Monster and Boss Monster 2 really in one video. But there's one thing I have yet to cover, and that is, of course, can two play this game? Two can play this game. It is great fun as a two-player head-to-head game. And I would say scaling-wise, between 2 players, 3 and 4, it can start to kind of drag a little at 4 players if people are a bit slow at making decisions. But because there is a lot of simultaneous decision making and playing going on, it actually scales really well. So when you add those additional players, it doesn't make a huge difference. Or when you lose players, it doesn't make a huge difference. Now, there are some card effects, etc., which do work better and rely more heavily on there actually being more players. But it still does work really nicely as a 2-player game. It is a nice, cheap, easily portable 2-player game. So, there you have it. That's my review of Boss Monster 2. I do hope that you have enjoyed this video. Of course, if you have enjoyed it, please do watch the rest of my videos, and of course share my videos and channel with your friends and family, and check us out on social media. We are on Facebook and also on Twitter. And as always, thanks for watching, and bye for now.